Podemos começar? Boa tarde a todos, bem-vindos aos trabalhos da tarde. Devido ao pequeno atraso de hoje de manhã, vamos iniciar os nossos trabalhos com a apresentação da Elke Kellner, Presidente do ICOM Áustria. Hi, Elke, how are you? Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? First of all, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to participate today. I'm so sorry for the delay because of the technical issues in the morning. A very brief presentation of the vast curriculum of Elke. Elke is chair of ICOM Austria, as I've said many times. She is also the creator of the series ICOM Palmyra Talks to support the fight against looting and illicit trafficking of cultural goods, and she's an expert for the OSCE in that field, and also a member of the OSCE Heritage Crime Task Force. Elke is lecturing at different law enforcement training workshops for the OSCE, the Smithsonian Museum, and the US Department of State, and also the Austrian Armed Force. And she lectured in 2016 a master course about cultural heritage at the Danube University in Austria. And she's going to talk today about prevention and response to illicit trafficking in cultural goods in the context of museums. The floor is yours, Elke.
Have to fix the presentation quickly. Just a second, I hope it works. Can you see it?
Yeah. No, the presentation, no. Yeah, now, yeah.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes. No,
yes,
not again, not again. Elke, we can't. Yeah, now, yeah.
All right. Take some time. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to present what we're doing a little bit. Thank you, David, from ICOM Portugal, and Paula and the University of Porto for inviting me. It's a great pleasure. I just give you a short impression about ICOM, because ICOM, of course, is a huge player in the fight against illicit trafficking. The International Council of Museums is the international non-governmental organization of museums and museum professionals. And we are committed to research, conservation, and communication of the world's natural and cultural heritage to society. Why is this so important in this rapidly changing world? Cultural heritage is not about only preserving objects, stones, or ruins. It defines our history, our identity, who we are as human beings. So ICOM, as the voice of museums and museum professionals on the international stage, is connected with lots of organizations. I just put on a few of them on the sheet, and that ICOM raises awareness for how important the natural and cultural heritage is in a huge global network of museums and museum experts. Our mission is to support the museums as they preserve this human inheritance in their collections. Humanity is confronted with unprecedented challenges, from terror of IS to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. From a worldwide pandemic to the impact of climate change, like wildfires, drought, and the current horrible floodings we experience. In times like these, art and culture have a very special role to play in the world of diplomacy, also international cultural cooperation and exchange is paramount. ICOM was founded in 1946 and is exactly the period after the end of the Second World War, to have those key missions of museums, culture, and international cooperations play a very important role in peace building among nations. We are a membership organization, with more than 55,000 members, individuals and museums worldwide, and we have lots of important tasks to cater to. One is, of course, the ICOM Code of Ethics, the standard of professional and ethical standard for museums and museum professionals. It defines, of course, what a museum is, what recommendations make for cultural heritage, promote capacity building and the advancement of knowledge. So we have a huge international network. We carry out international missions in crisis management, but of course fighting illicit trafficking is one of our core activities that ICOM is promoting internationally with all the national committees. Many of them are involved too. The objects that are kept in museums are material remains of the past left behind by generations that came before us. Those objects can be very old, quite new. They can also be contemporary art. They can be very precious or of low monetary but high historic values. So an object has to have this provenance, this context. This is most important for us. And therefore, the ICOM Code of Ethics very clearly points out and advises that museum professionals should strictly focus on preserving the heritage of our collections, and they should not bring their expertise in to actively participate or support the dealing with natural or cultural objects. As it was pointed out, unfortunately, sometimes this red line is overstepped, or the provenance of an object that is bought for a collection is not thoroughly checked enough, leading to severe damage for the concerned museum as a trusted institution of society. Provenance research therefore has become a crucial importance before acquiring objects in museums nowadays. Of course, not everybody is following the rules yet, especially in the field of private collections. So ICOM continues to work and raise awareness in this topic. So what can we bring to the table? There are some aspects I want to focus on. You just see an overview of the topics I will touch in the upcoming lecture. But before we start with that, I want to give you a brief analysis of the phenomenon of illicit trafficking of cultural goods. As a representative of ICOM, you mentioned it already, I'm part of the OSCE Heritage Crime Task Force. This is a task force where experts from law enforcement, international organizations, government organizations, museums, and academia work together to exchange information on current trends in this transnational crime. You see a graphic from an Interpol report of 2022, and you see that's truly a global phenomenon that is conducted along the smuggling routes of trafficking weapons, drugs, and human trafficking also. The main proprietors are organizations of organized crime and terrorism. So law enforcement has increased interest to attack those structures now. After the investigations of some of the most deadly terrorist attacks, like 9/11, the attack on Bataclan in Paris, or the attack on the Brussels airport, all brought forward evidence that the terrorists financed part of the attacks by smuggling and selling illicit antiquities. Apart from the destruction of human heritage, this was a very good reason to step out the fight against illicit trafficking for law enforcement. And you see how those routes go more or less all over the world. Europe is one of the centers, but of course not the only one. And those routes keep changing and adapting as we go. Here you have an overview of some of the reported illicit excavation sites. You have the main reports in the area of Asia and South Pacific, some of them in Europe. But this reporting is, of course, especially in areas of pricing, you don't really have reporting. So most of the sites that are looted are not reported. and because those sites are not controlled or no reports are made. So the statistics just gives an overview of the really reported crimes. It's much, much higher in the non-reported factors. As you see, the just pictures you may have seen before, the site of Apamea in Syria in 2011, where a Swiss archaeological team used to dig a huge Roman city with a central colonnade. And just roughly 1 year later, the kind of industrial digging that took part at these sites, each of these holes is an illicit excavation where objects were dug out. And of course, those we don't know those objects, they are not documented. The other ones are stolen objects that are reported stolen. These have the advantage that they oftentimes are already documented or inventorized if they're stolen from a museum or from an official collection. You see it's very, very different. But all kinds of objects are stolen and trafficked. You have a huge number of numismatic items also, but sculptures, painting, archaeological items all over. It just differs in the continent and probably also from the interest of criminals or collectors where they want to sell those items. So how does those organized crime organizations work? The illicit excavation have no documentation, of course, so that makes it very difficult to detect items. So at the forefront of those illegal diggings are the frontline players, thieves, diggers, organized crime groups who facilitate digs out of the ground, often at sites that are not controlled. We don't know which kind of items they're taking out, and they aim to get them across the borders, helped by the so-called intermediaries, facilitators, who help them to smuggle them across borders in free ports, in all kind of with air travel, with passengers, with cars passing the borders. So all modes of transportations are used to facilitate that until those objects reach the intermediaries, the end players, the dealers, the auction houses, the collectors, and brought into the legal market with fake provenances. So another kind of graphic to make it more clearly, because the object is taken from an excavation site, probably smuggled to another country, sold to another country. So you also are able maybe to build provenances, illegal provenances. So the object cannot be brought in connection with the source country, and then is again brought to another country where it's pursued to be sold in the art market with fake provenances, as my colleague already pointed out. So at the Heritage Crime Task Force, we train law enforcement and customs officials in designated workshops about those different aspects of the illicit trafficking crimes, from heritage protection to criminal investigation, and also foster cooperation and contacts amongst the different officials and law enforcement to be able to quickly get in touch and exchange information. Museum professionals and academics also play a crucial role in researching objects and provenance and providing crucial information for law enforcement to identify those objects and of course the provenance or bring light into fake provenances. So as I pointed out in the Code of Ethics, ICOM and museum professionals in general are important. They should and must support law enforcement, and on the other side must not participate in this dealing of cultural or natural objects. Another important thing ICOM is putting forward are the ICOM red lists. They are a practical tool for customs officials, police, law enforcement, to curb the illegal traffic of cultural objects. We provide a database, I think with 18 different red lists at the moment, mostly from areas of crisis. They're available for download in multiple languages. And they don't depict actually the stolen items, but they show the categories of cultural objects that are most likely to be subject to theft and illegal trafficking. They identify objects protected by law, objects which can be targeted by illicit trafficking and are on high demand of the art market. There we go. And ICOM has a quite long track record in responding to emergency situations, and those red lists have done very good to help us to train border officials and to give non-expert a first view if an object appears at the border that they have grounds to seize it. Especially heritage in armed conflict is in danger. We remember the horrible destructions that went on in Syria or Iraq. And there also was put forward a list of a red list, ICOM red list of objects in Syria. And pointing out here just one example, it's a funerary relief coming from the city of Palmyra. That's very, very typical for Palmyra. And Palmyra was a Roman oasis in the desert between Damascus and the Euphrates, which was one of the most important trading hubs in antiquity between East and West. The Palmyrene families built large-scale burial complexes in the forms of towers sometimes, or temple-like structures which were built above or below ground. The deceased were buried in these shafts, and those shafts were closed with blades bearing their images. So you have those steles that you can see in the marked area. Those are ones of those burial funerary reliefs. According to inscription, this very, very richly decorated relief are from a son and daughter of a man named Yedibel. The rich jewelry worn corresponds to the usual forms of the Roman period, and also that there are some Oriental aspects which are so typical for Syria. And of course, some of those objects are legal in museum collections, but many of them were later traded by IS and terrorists and were fed into the illicit art market. So one more picture of Palmyra as it used to be, and after the horrible destructions that went on. Similarly, in Iraq, the National Museum was plundered in 2003 with 15,000 objects stolen, and ICOM put forward a red list for Iraq to support, to identify those objects if they appear on the borders or in the market. Very unfortunate also during the war now in Ukraine. We have 2 years already this war raging, and as museums preserve the cultural inheritance, they are trying to protect the collections, but it's very hard for the colleagues in Ukraine. ICOM Austria is supporting them with help transports, but especially in areas of crisis like that, objects get stolen from heritage institutions. Many museums are already severely damaged, and museums and cultural institutions are in many times directly attacked by the Russian forces with the intention to destroy the national identity of Ukraine. So those in the year of the 70th anniversary of the Den Haag Convention, also the means of war have changed severely, and to destroy heritage and identity has been a new target of the Russian forces. And ICOM issued this list of cultural objects from Ukraine, because in as I mentioned, in these areas of crisis, often there's also criminality, and people take advantage to steal objects. But there also has been really strategic plundering by the Russian forces. Here you see some pictures of the Kherson Art Museum that got plundered in November 2022. Those paintings like these are currently targeted by Russians plundering museums in Ukraine. They have been taken out of the Kherson Art Museum and brought, I don't know if I know, you see a picture of the transport trucks they were loaded into and then brought to Crimea, to a museum there, and from there they disappeared and most probably went into Russia. And we are looking out for paintings like that. The pictures above were taken and collected on social media. So we see that those paintings arrived, and then we could analyze, and the ones we see in the photographs can be identified, and you find them on the slides I'm showing here. ICOM expects Russia as well as Ukraine, as state parties of the Hague Convention, to abide international legal obligations to protect heritage. But as I mentioned, sites and museums have been directly attacked and damaged by the Russian forces, and Ukrainian heritage is being destroyed and plundered. And unfortunately, we have some indications that also Russian museum professionals have aided and abetted these actions. So another plundering site, the Museum of Local History in Melitopol, where Scythian gold artifacts got plundered. The director and curator were arrested, were put under pressure. They didn't really want to say where they hid those objects, but the Russian forces ultimately found them in the cellars of the museum, and of course also stole them and brought them to a currently unknown location. Ukraine is doing a lot to document and digitize its national collections. So we have digital inventories and lots of efforts also of historic sites that are being 3D scanned and documented. And of course, many ICOM organizations brought help material to Ukraine to support the protection measures. And there's also a team of national first aid responders to help save cultural heritage. So areas of crisis are also areas of illicit trafficking. We had lots of border officials also from Ukraine that were put into training by the OSCE to make them aware of this problem. And one thing that really helps us in identifying objects, and that ICOM has put forward together with the Getty Foundation, is the standard of the object ID to describe the objects that we are encountering. So this is an international standard to make it easier and provide all information about an object. So you have the different categories to describe it, and we've also mentioning maybe markings at the back or inventory numbers, often when also illicit objects appear in catalogs from auction houses, especially archaeological objects. You sometimes see some numbers written on the back of the object or on the side. So this is an indication that this object has already been in some kind of inventory, maybe an inventory of an archaeological site or an inventory of a museum. So these things, and to document those, gives us very good indications and help to identify those objects. And there are already also in the digital means very good applications that can help you with the documentation in these cases. Museums can also be safe havens for objects. You see here the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna, and on the right part, 2 Roman marble heads that were confiscated by Austrian police forces. They stopped people who were at a parking space near a highway. It was a truck and a smaller car, and they were exchanging some kind of black bags. And when the policemen looked into those bags, they saw those marble heads. And of course, they confiscated them, they seized them, and they were brought to the Kunsthistorische Museum, where we are analyzing them. It's hard, of course, because Roman heads from the imperial area are designed to be the same. Also, the marble is traveling all around the Roman Empire, so it's hard to identify where exactly they come from. We initiated an analysis to find maybe traces of soil or organic traces, but also those efforts didn't really determine where those heads come from, but research continues, and we are hoping to sometime be able to give them back to the country of origin. But those heads obviously have been looted from an archaeological site and have not been documented before. So an information resource in the fight against illicit trafficking is the International Observatory on Illicit Trafficking in Cultural Goods. This is a website by ICOM that gives you resources on international laws concerning trafficking, provides case studies and good practices, and maybe you want to have a look into that, some more resources for research and information. And of course, we provide a huge international network of experts that are helping law enforcement and customs organizations to identify objects, but also to raise public awareness, which is another key part in our work. Awareness must be raised on all levels, from experts to officials to the broad public. David mentioned our project with the ICOM Palmyra talks. We had those talks over a time frame of 3 years on different issues. And this mentioned here is a circulating artifacts project of one of the colleagues from Marcel Marais from the British Museum, also in an attempt to monitor and analyze objects, Egyptian objects that are circulating in the art market, and to research them and to point out provenance. And he was able to pinpoint a lot of objects that were offered for sale, and to show that they were illicitly looted, and many of them were given back to the Egyptian authorities because it could be proven that they came from illicit digging in Egypt. But we also provide a publication in Austria, a kind of a checklist for safe acquisition that is directed to collectors and individuals who want to buy cultural items, we really point out the difficulties that can be connected and inform them about illicit antiquities and give them relevant information that they have to ask dealers about the provenance and to not buy antiquities that are in doubt or that might be illicitly trafficked. So this is really the key thing to care for our collections, and collections are endangered by also different critical dangers. Here are just a few listed, and I just want to get into that just as a supporting argument, because of course when objects are stolen from the museums, they can be objects in the illicit trafficking. And here's just one of the most famous examples in the Isabella Stewart Gardiner museums. One of the most famous heists in the world were the paintings. Unfortunately, this is one of the paintings that have been stolen, the famous sea piece by Rembrandt. Those paintings have never reappeared again and are still looked after by law enforcement and cultural organizations. But also big museum thefts, like here in Berlin, where there are security concerns because of one of the museum employees was member of one of those organized crime groups, and he helped to facilitate the theft. He opened the window from inside and let the thieves in. So we need to take care also that the securities in museums are stepped up. Another case in the Grünes Gewölbe in Germany, where a jewel collection has been was stolen by indeed the same criminals that were just on in court and for the first theft in the Bode Museum. So organized crime is a big issue, but also I wanted to add this part because of the horrible floodings currently also in Spain. There were floodings in Austria with severity just in September. We are working a lot on emergency plans for museums because climate change really has a huge impact on objects in our collections. But there's also as centers of discourse in society. Museums are also an arena for political actions, as we have seen by the climate protests, which are focusing on an important issue. But of course, we don't want our objects to be vandalized or even destroyed. One must point out that in none of those climate actions, every time the objects did not suffer any harm. But of course, we have to be careful and really would not support this method of getting public attention to the issue. Had one of the cases in Austria as well at the Leopold Museum. But it was another political act, because this can also be kind of an instance that can be copied by other political organizations. This was a Palestinian supporter who really sprayed and afterwards cut a painting in a Cambridge collection. I think it was a Cambridge Museum, a gallery of the university, where this painting was really severely damaged. And we have other threats, of course, technical problems, flooding here in Austria. And we're doing a lot in helping to step up emergency management issues. And I just wanted to raise your awareness on the ICOM priority plaque for evacuation. We support this by providing the copy, the design of those plaques for all international committees. So if you're interested to have some of those plaques, please let us know. We give you all the necessary information. But I thought, as those horrible floodings are ongoing, to put this part in a little apart from the topic of the illicit trafficking, but also in crisis situations. Objects are also in danger of getting stolen. When you have an emergency evacuation, you have to care also if you have a depot outside of the museum, that this depot is guarded, is secured. Otherwise, those objects can also be part of the illicit trafficking and the illegal market sometime. And here you see some examples that we have training with the armed forces, police forces, and fire brigades in Austria to be training such evacuation exercises for museums. And I want to finish with this. Museums and culture play a lasting role in building peace among nations. We hope that will be true for Ukraine sometimes too. And if you have any questions that I can help you with or need some more information, I'm happy to provide anything I can do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your overview about ICOM role in the fighting and prevention about the illicit trafficking, and not only about the work of the observatory and the publishing of the red lists, but also the question of ethics. So we have 10 minutes for questions. Anyone has a question for Elke? No one? I have a question, actually, if I can start. We talk a lot about the work of the observatory and also the publishing of the red list, but is ICOM doing anything in Palestine nowadays? Is he working on the question nowadays of the cultural heritage of Palestine?
I know that there has been some pointing out that heritage sites in Palestine suffer destruction or some kind of damage. There also has been a UNESCO, I think, special meeting just recently focusing on Lebanon, because a UNESCO World Heritage sites like Baalbek are near some military attacks. But this would be an issue for the International Office of ICOM, not for us as a national committee of Austria. But of course, it's very important to really point out to all responsible parties to save heritage, to be sure not attack heritage sites. Most of the countries have signed the Hague Convention. We have the 70th-year anniversary this year of this very important convention that protects heritage in armed conflicts, wars, and crises. So the states should really prepare for these instances, and we just had here in Vienna a 3-day conference with armed forces, also with armed forces from Lebanon, who pointed out what they are doing in respect of cultural protection in the military environments.
Any question, any comments about the Elke lecture?
Maybe just one thing I didn't mention, a good prospect for the future, because the European Union is also stepping up their efforts to fight illicit trafficking. and there has been brought forward a new law, a regulation that all objects that are transported into the European Union now need some kind of provenance and need a certain certificate. It will be put on into a database where more countries have direct access to these informations. So maybe this is a step that help us to monitor and have a chance that not so many looted objects especially get into the area of the European Union.
Okay, no question. Maybe, Elke, you can just say a few words about Blue Shield, because we didn't speak about Blue Shield yet, and Portugal is actually nowadays putting up its national committee of Blue Shield. Maybe you just can just raise awareness about the importance of Blue Shield in terms of international fighting about illicit trafficking. It would be interesting to finish.
Blue Shield is one of the organizations under the roof of the UNESCO. ICOM is one of the founding organizations of Blue Shield, and Blue Shield is not really involved in the fight against illicit trafficking. Blue Shield really focuses on the Hague Convention and the protection of heritage in armed conflicts or also crisis situations. That this is really the mission of Blue Shield in the context of the Hague Convention. They're communicating with armed forces, which is very important. We saw that especially at the conference I just mentioned, where we had to raise awareness at military commanders, at armed forces, that the protection of heritage is an important factor, and it also helps the military, because if the military personnel attacks an important heritage site, the people will suffer, and they will be very opposed to the military. So those are things that we can sell also for military commanders, that then make them aware that protection of cultural heritage is also security for armed forces. So there are many aspects, because also museum professionals, cultural people, academics, they speak quite a different language than the military, than the armed forces. So it's good to have an intermediary like Blue Shield that kind of know both worlds. In Austria, for example, military officers that are specially trained by the armed forces in cultural property protection, and they are also working together with Blue Shield and with ICOM. So those are the things that where really Blue Shield is of key importance. And here we also work together in emergency situations. Like I mentioned, the floodings, catastrophic, extreme weather situations, where Blue Shield and ICOM play crucial roles in prevention. This is the thing we're really enforcing. You have to think about plans, emergency plans for your collection, for your museums, for your staff, and for your visitors. To have everyone safe, and if you can, also save the items of collections, and all the most important things are in the planning. If we have a good plan, and then if we exercise the plan, if we have training, then we see if the plan is really working out. So if a really emergency situation might occur, that we are prepared and that we have a good chance of also saving the objects.
Thank you. We have a question from António Ponte. He's the director of the National Museum of Soares dos Reis.
Thank you, Elke. You brought us very important and very interesting tools to look around and work with all these subjects. And this question could be posed to you and also to David, even also to me, because in these days we are working in ICOM Central, with thinking about the international committees and we probably needed to think about to see which international committees in ICOM are important, and other international committees could be created according to the new needs of the international problems that we are dealing today. Last week I was in Africa in one conference that one of the organizers was the ICOM Sustain. And I was very critical with them because ICOM Sustain is just looking for the climate change and the problems with climate change. They are really important today, but I think we should look for our matter, our subject. It's important to look how the climate change is affecting the cultural heritage. You pointed us with some very objective points of climate change problems, and this subject about illicit traffic, some more coordinated information about the instruments that we can have to look around and to deal with these subjects in a more coordinated way could be very important to think inside of ICOM to disseminate with all world members all around. So this is not a question. I think it's a subject for we look around and think and discuss in our national committees, international committees, in our meetings. If is not the time to look inside ICOM and think if we shouldn't create an international committee about the questions about the legal aspects for museums and for museum professionals to have a place where to discuss and where to go to look for instruments to deal with these subjects. This is not ICOM CC, this is not ICOM management, this is something very general, not so general is not the term, but this is a very important issue that we needed to deal with more focus on the way we are dealing with it. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. As Christos also mentioned, there's still work to do with museums, with museum professionals, but especially in the art market, we really have to enforce those ethical guidelines. We have to enforce and raise awareness about how important the provenance of an object is, why also it has some really dangers on the terrorist or organized crime side that we don't want to support with having illicit antiquities on the market. We have the whole question of research, which gets damaged when objects are dug out of the ground and they lose all scientific context in archaeology. We just have the nice objects, but it is not able to tell us any scientific story anymore. So the books are missing many pages for research if those illicit excavations are done. And I would really support to focus more thoroughly on ICOM on this issue, because they're single persons who are doing a lot. I'm in quite a lot of committees, and of course, because international organizations are seated in Vienna, I have a very good contact there. And this is really the key thing, to get in touch with one another, to have a network. And ICOM is really a very good network that could support that, because also law enforcement are often looking for experts. If they seize an object, they have like 24 to 48 hours to be able to keep or to hold on to these objects until they have to let it go, or they have to really file into an investigation. So they really need museums experts to support them, to analyze an object, to give them a quick input. Could this be an illicit object? What are indicators to identify an object? And there could be a very, very important work that museum professionals could contribute in helping law enforcement to attack this kind of crime.
No more questions? So thank you very much, Elke. I'm just going to underline that nowadays ICOM, because we are talking about ICOM, I'm not going to talk, and we are talking about international committees of ICOM, going to underline one aspect. ICOM is going under the revision of its code of ethics. So participate in this revision, in this discussion. It is very important. With ICOM Portugal, for sure, the National Committee, but also with ethics, the International Committee about ethics, and is going through the revision of the Code of Ethics. So thank you very much again, Elke. See you soon. And now I'm going to give the floor to Paula Menini-Homem, and she's going to present the next speaker, Pier Giacomo Sola.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Pier Giacomo Sola. Are you there, PG?
I'm here. Thank you very much, Paula. I can start sharing my screen.
So it's my pleasure to introduce you. And Pier Giacomo Sola is a senior project manager at the Michael Culture Association. He has been active in the design, coordination, evaluation, and technical assistance of complex transnational projects in educational and cultural innovation fields. He has coordinated, managed, contributed to over 150 research projects and studies in EU-funded programs, mainly Erasmus+, Creative Europe, European Regional Development Fund, framework programs, Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, and so on. So he's a very well experienced people in projects. And I'm glad he accepted our invitation, as the other two colleagues, so thanks Elke and Christos. And he will present the picture project, Preventing Illicit Trafficking in Cultural Heritage Educational Resources, Mobilizing Youth to Support the International Policy Context. So the floor is yours, PG.
Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you very much, David, also for the exceptional organizations that you had. And I'm sorry, I was expected to be in Porto, in the room with you, but unfortunately, due to some health problem, I could not travel yesterday, so I'm just connected online. From the general presentation of mine made by Paula, you have understood that my profile is quite different. I'm not, as Christos, as Elke, in the front line of the fight against illicit trafficking in cultural property. Michael Culture, the organization where I'm working on, is an association that is more focusing on digital culture, so trying to promote any kind of use of digital technology in museums, but also libraries, archives, galleries, or any kind of culture. So it's just by chance, let's say, that in the last years we've been involved in some projects that were directly concerned with this topic, and of course I will do my best to present a little bit the experiences that we had in this project in order to see how our activities can be useful to any museum, but also school, university. This is interesting in working with us in promoting and raise awareness about this issue, mainly to mobilize young people. This is the main object of my presentation of today, and of course, this is an important issue because we have to educate people to continue the fight that we are starting now. So let's start with the presentation. First of all, why we started with the picture project. Of course, I will not repeat. Unfortunately, I am the last of the presentation today, so many of the introduction sessions that I have prepared has been already described by Christos and Elke, so I will just mention that at the basis of our intervention is the UNESCO Convention. It is important to underline that it has been already ratified by 147 states until now. And of course, as an Italian, I'm quite proud to say that Italy was not only one of the first countries to ratify the convention, but 1 year before the convention, this means in 1969, the Italian government had already created the nucleo, the unit for the fight against illicit trafficking in Carabinieri, that is the Italian military police. So, of course, there is also a good tradition at the national level in this fight. Going on, trafficking of cultural goods. There is nothing new. What is important is that there is not only a problem concerning the property. The main issue that we are trying to with which we are trying to motivate young people is that we are losing a very important part of our memory and history. So, an archaeological artifact, an exhibit that is moved from the area where it has been excavated, lose all the concept, all the history that was related to these specific places. And of course, this is something that is very important in order to keep the memory of the specificity of each single excavation, of each single site that we have. The European Union, since some years, has put this argument in one of the key topics of this agenda. And it's important that in 2019, the Nature Project was started as a first action at European level in order to mobilize all the different categories of professionals. So not only archaeologists, but also not only museum or any kind of cultural professional, but also the law enforcement agency, the art market, the research, the university, the school. And of course, one of the bigger results of this first project that was concluded in March 2021 was to pave the way to a set of different initiatives. One of them will be picture. However, before starting with picture, and I will be very, very fast because something has been already said, it was also important to present some elements. The most looted site, I give you 2 seconds to think what could be, and the good answer is Pompeii. Pompeii is a very well-known archaeological site since hundreds of years, and of course there are a lot of exhibits, artifacts that has been looted from the site. The most looted countries, in terms of number of objects, Italy and France. In France in particular, there are more than 200,000 items that are detected with metal detectors every year. And metal detection is one of the topics that the picture is very interesting in. The most stolen exhibit painting is a portrait of Jacob the Gain, painted by Rembrandt. Has been stolen 4 times, and so there is a real love of thefts on this masterpiece. The largest bounty, just already mentioned by Elke, is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, with 12 works of art that were stolen on the March 18, 1990. And the most famous theft, well, it's not so difficult. Leonardo da Vinci Mona Lisa, that was stolen by an Italian glazier, but very important people, including Guillaume Apollinaire, Pablo Picasso, were inquired because there was some suspect about their possible collaboration in the theft. Another important object that unfortunately has been probably destroyed is the Caravaggio Nativity that was stolen in October 1969 in a church in Palermo, was never found and probably has been destroyed by mafia. Some interesting notes, for instance, in December last year, there was a family that was just restoring the house after the death of the parents, and they identified a very interesting and strange element. They immediately informed the local museum, and now this piece of art is going to be given back to the Italian museum where it has been stolen several years ago. We are also managing falsification, that of course is not directly the theme of our conversation today, but is another important aspect. It's a new 2 days ago that is the most important investigation done by the Italian Carabinieri once more is concerned with falsification of modern art. And the story of the Amedeo Modigliani centennial in summer 1984 is quite interesting because there was a legend about some statues that were created by Modigliani but never found, and there was the rumor that they have been put in the river close to the city where he was born, Livorno. The city tried to drag the river in order to find. Nothing has been found, and 3 young artists decided to simulate the creation of 3 statues similar to Modigliani. They put it in the river, and they were supposed to be the real statue for many weeks before they came out and declared that the statue were a false. There was a video with them creating the images. Then there are other stories of Luther that are displeased after some years about the Luther, and age 87 they help the police, the archaeologists to find the history, the traces of an archaeological site where these memories has been identified. There is another stories about the theft of books. There is a group of Russian thefts that was used now, actually they have been identified, to create false copies of very precious books, go into the library, replace the book, and then, of course, to sell the original in the black market. And, of course, this is something that happened in several countries. There are also other stories of a director of museums that, in order to make money, supported the thieves in order to sell the objects and make money. This, of course, is somebody that is already well known, Christos. I will not present once more the story that has been already mentioned this morning. And of course, what just as important to underline is that most of the investigations that is did were not acknowledged by the museum, by the ministries that were take benefit from this restitution without any special thanks given to Christos. This is another story quite well known in Italy about another theft that after several years declare his theft and supported the Carabinieri in order to identify them. But now, let's go on in the core of our presentation and start from the background of picture, the Nature Project. I already mentioned that the project was a research project within the Horizon 2020 program. It was coordinated by the National Councils of Research in France, and it was aimed to create a working group focusing on supporting discussion among the different professionals. At the end of the project, a set of recommendations addressing all the different community of the stakeholders have been done, and of course, one of these recommendations was concerned about the necessity of creating educational training materials in order to facilitate an involvement of all the citizens of population and to increase the awareness and sensitivity of all the people against this traffic. The research, the results of the project, were first of all the definition of international framework that also paved the way to a set of other projects that has been launched last year and are now currently directly concerned with the development of tools in order to support the different actors. And now we're moving from nature to picture. The Picture Project, I underline once more, has been launched in order to create a model to be used by schools, university, museum educators, in order to facilitate a better knowledge about this problem. The materials are concerned with trafficking of cultural property, but also looting. So there are both the archaeological aspects and the museum evidence. And of course, they are using an interdisciplinary approach in the sense that we did our best in order to involve not only the teachers that are directly concerned with art of history, but also any kind of subject matter that is concerned with ethical, historical, and cultural issues. The partners are a very important archaeological site in France, BIBRACT, our association, Michael Culture, the National School of Police in France, Museum X, that is an interesting association concerned with creating museum innovation, in the sense that supporting museum in identifying different ways to look at their organizations, and then some schools in Greece, Spain, and Italy. What is quite interesting is that a few months after the creation, the birth of the picture project, the European Union launched an action plan on the 13th of December 2022. It was launched, the action, in order to mobilize not only the cultural sector, but also the research, the internal affairs, the security, the home affairs, and to identify a common strategy. And what, of course, was very, very interesting for us is that this Article 3.4 directly mentions the picture project. So even before, to achieve our goals, we have been involved within this action plan. Of course, this increased our willingness to achieve excellent results in order to, of course, be proud of the advertisement that was given the project by the European Commission. It's also important to mention that the European Union Action Plan, if you look at the website of the program, of the action, mention picture, nature, so the past project, and the three projects that I was mentioning before. And in one of them, Anchise, I will suggest all of you to have a look at the website of this project, because continuously, almost every month, and we already started in October, there is a webinar that is concerned about problems concerned with the fight against illicit trafficking and looting, and this could be an additional opportunity for us to stay in contact and continue spreading information about this important topic. So, the picture strategy, let's now move on directly on the project. The timelines of activity is from 2021 to 2024. We start in the first year, from November 2021 in October 2022, with the analysis of the existing good practices. It was stupid to try to reinvent the wheel, so we did our best to identify learning or educational program, if there were. We were not able to find, and of course this was something important in order to underline the innovation that was given by picture. Of course, there were a lot of information about this topic, and the first year was completely concerned with creating a network of expertise, of cooperation, and contacts to be activated in order to take benefit of all these opportunities, and of course also the contact with Christos and with ICOM Europe were activated in this first part of the project. The second year, starting in November 2022 and was concluded last July, was concerned on the contrary with the development of open educational resources. That means training materials that do not need to be organized in a traditional school way. Can be organized in a museum, can be organized online, can be organized according to the different characteristics of the people that are interested in using these materials. They have been created, revised, assessed by external experts, and finally tested also by the partner schools and by other schools that declare their interest in the experimental pilot. Finally, starting from April 2024 and until the last October, the project is over now since the 31st of October, we have developed a series of recommendations and guidelines in order to promote a mass use of these materials. Of course, some guidelines in order to support teachers educators to use the materials that has been developed, but on the other side also some recommendations in order to try to motivate, if possible, policy decision makers in order to increase the attention they may have on the topic. And finally, for sure, the very last issue is the exploitation of this material, and of course this is also why we are doing our best in order to organize events focusing on presenting our work, hoping to receive the interest from anybody interested in education and training. The open educational results. This is the matrix that we are using in order to look at the different materials. There are 17 materials that has been developed, and they are organized according to the different ages of the student, from 7 to 11, primary school, 11, 14, the junior secondary school, 14, 18, lyceum, upper secondary school. The second dimension is the semantics. So we try to organize the overall fight in different steps, and we identify the theft of antiquities, the sale of stolen objects, the traffic channels, the professionals that are engaged in the fight against the traffic, the provenance research and traceability of the object, the return, the restitution of stolen objects, and the preservation of the memory of missing artifacts. And another topic that we introduced because it was directly requested by the teachers that were involved in our first year of activity, some materials concern why is forbidden, what are the consequences, because it's not so evident as for us that we are directly working this issue, that to take an object from an archaeological site and keep it at home is something that is forbidden. This is a kind of sensitivity that is more important in the Mediterranean area, but in Northern European countries, for instance, detectorism is something that is authorized. So if people go in a place, find the coins, find an amphora, steal, and take it at home, they are not committing any robbery. And of course, this is something that at European level should be, on the contrary, homogenized, because otherwise we will have different legislation and different sensitivity about this problem. The materials has been developed with a wide range of formats. Some are learning units, they are videos, example of illustrations, there are games, escape games, learning. For instance, the Talking Clay is a graphic novel that has been created by our Spanish partner schools in order to create a set of stories that created the basis for making students understand why this kind of problem is important and identify what are the different professionals, the different people that are interested and involved in this fight. Another material, on the contrary, Looting in the Village, is an escape game that can be very easily adapted to any museum and is a visit to the museum organized according to some questions that are posed to the visitor according to the real exhibits that are present in the museum. Each answer provides a clue for a final map where at the end of the visit, the visitor can find a toolbox in order to recreate and give back the object that we simulate has been stolen to the museum. Here you see the way in which we have organized. This was created last year during an event organized within Museum Mix. Museum Mix is an event that usually happens in November. It was expected next week in France, Italy, Spain. There are some countries that are involved. Last year, during one of these events close to Marseille, we've visited the museum, the archaeological museum in Châteauneuf, and created these open educational resources starting from the resources present in the museum. Guilty Treasure. We will go in depth later on about this resource has been created using the red list that has been already presented by Elke, so I will not repeat. Red list is very important. And of course, the object of the game is to simulate that one of the objects that are present in one of the different red lists that has been published by ICOM has been stolen, and the players have to identify what is the object and in which way it has been stolen in order to give it back to the original museum. Guilty Treasure also identifies the different professions that are involved: the archaeologists, the policemen, the artist, the conservator, and the customs professional. Pill art, on the contrary, that comes from pillage, that is the French word for looting, has been created by the French School of Police and is concerned with different players that have to answer some different questions during the travel all around Europe in order to identify the object that has been stolen and how they have been identified and replaced. Journey of the Steel directly comes from experience of Christos, is a different steps. It moves around the different steps. The first step of the steel is a presentation of an ancient Greek steel and the creation of the interest of the student about the significance of the heritage according to the use of the materials. The second part, on the contrary, directly refers to the experience of the stolen object that was recovered thanks to Christos. And these are the documents that has been already provided, simulated before. Then there are some interesting examples that has been already proposed during the day, but can support the students in order to identify how different are the cases and the variety of objects, archaeological and museum objects that have been stolen and have been found again. And finally, the students are invited to create a poster, a video, an activity in order to describe their activities and present their work to other students, to other classes. Another interesting example has been created by our second Spanish school in Catalonia, because they have been working for several years with the Archaeological Museum of Ullastrette in Catalonia, once more, and so they have organized a material simulating to have a group of chefs and a group of archaeologists that are fighting in order to prevent the fight, and on the other side to escape, to dig the materials using a metal detector. And of course, these are some ideas about the way in which we have been organized the materials. Finally, the guidelines and the recommendation. I already mentioned there are two main categories, the recommendation for policymaker and the recommendation for the teachers, cultures, mediator, in order to have a guide introducing them to the 17 training materials and identify the ones that are more useful for their specific purposes. In particular, the recommendation for policymakers tackle the different topics that can be interesting. First of all, the importance of strengthening education on heritage preservation and the fight against the looting of archaeological sites. And of course, they try to motivate policy decision makers in order to integrate training the teachers and to integrate this topic in the preparation of the future teacher and in the continuous retraining of their professional skills, creating other digital training materials, also MOOCs, promote best training practices, encourage academic research. Then, the second important topic, of course, how to include the different themes that are concerned with the fight against illicit trafficking and looting into the school curricula, and of course how the educational material developed picture can be used in order to facilitate this kind of exchange and transfer of experience, integrating this issue into the university and professional training of future professionals and teachers, encouraging collaboration between educational institutions and the heritage stakeholders. So there are a lot of different thematics that has been organized into a very concise way, because we know that the decision makers are not used to spend so much time in reading paper. So we tried really to identify the good motivation, the good elements that can be useful in order to support our work and motivate who is able to provide us with more money for this important initiative. Of course, it's important to raise awareness with the young generation, and here there are some areas that has been identified in order to use also youth association, any kind of activities, not directly in schools, but also outside the extracurricular experience, in order to involve the youth at the best. Finally, the recommendation in support also the ban of metal detectors. We have already mentioned how it's important also to have a major governmental policy initiative in order to let some countries, members of the European Union, that metal detecting is something that is incredibly destroying our heritage. This is something that is crucial in many countries in order to be effective. And of course, this is a specific activities that we are launching. And of course, if you are interested in this topic, please be in contact with us in order to support this initiative. Finally, the guidelines for teachers and cultural educators is just, let's say, a general introduction to the different materials that have been organized and some instruction, some support to teachers of different materials, of different subject matters, in order to facilitate the use of our materials and support their lesson with different classes with different ages. I thank you very, very much for your attention, and I give the floor to any question you may have in order to try to help you better understand how this material can be useful for your profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, PG. Very interesting and a lot of work, interdisciplinary work that give us some tools to work with young and old generations. So I give the floor to the public. Is there any questions, any comments? Yes, we have.
Hi, my name is Anna. I want to congratulate you on this work, this amazing work, and to, as a museum professional, it's always refreshing seeing games as a way to educate and to mostly to raise awareness. And I think this is an extraordinary work being done here, and I would love to know more and how can I implement that on my museum. So basically that's my question.
So if I may, I share once more my screen in order to look at the web pages. So I will start first of all with picture. This is the website of the picture project. Picture-project is available in different countries, in different languages, Italian, French, Spanish, Catalan and Greek, together with English. All the materials are here in the section about educational materials, and they are organized in the way that has been presented, according to the ages and according to the themes. And here you can find the linguistic version that has been created. All the 17 versions has been made available in English, French, and Italian. Some of them also in Catalan, Spanish, and Greek. And you have just to click in order to receive one of the I was checking. This is, for instance, the Guilty Treasure that if we have still some time, will be presented later on after a break. So I will not move, but let's say each of these material has all the information that is necessary in order to have all the different pieces of card instruction in order to use the material. So you don't have to find different, all the materials are unique. A second set of information that can be useful, because we will continue to talk about this issue, is concerned with the Anchise webinar. Anchise is a running project within the Horizon Europe program. And once more, I try to share my screen in order to present the web page. One moment that I lost a share. This is the page of the Anchise website, anchise.eu, that is concerned with the provisional resources that has been developed by the project. So once more, there are some toolkit, policy brief, but what is also very important are the Anchise talks. Is a set of webinars that describe some of the tools or topics that can be interesting for museum, for archaeological site. Until now, the first set of 4 events was concerned with what can artificial intelligence do to combat illicit trafficking, what can nanotechnology do to combat illicit trafficking, the role of the antiquities market in criminal money, the academia research for the fight, and new ones are expected to be launched. Sorry, I'm checking here, this one. The next one will be on the 12th or 19th of December. Will not define yet, but you will find the information on the website. And once that has been finalized, and it will concern with provenance research. Then in January, probably it will be about the use of GIS, the Geographic Information System, in the fight against looting. And so on. There will be several events. So of course, once more, once that you start studying, what is wonderful in education is that the more you learn, the more you're interested in learning something more. So let's say we are continuing, and we hope to continue this job for the next month and year. Thank you very much, Anna, for your question.
Thank you. Any more comments? Challenges? Questions? No? I have one. PG, did you evaluate the tests you've done with the young ones after the games? They tried the games. How do you evaluate the efficiency of the tools? Do they retain knowledge? Do they are thrilled with the game? They want to be the whistleblowers?
We had 2 different evaluations, because for sure our first target were the teachers directly, and then through the teachers the evaluation on the students. So our first evaluation was with the teachers, even before piloting them with the classes, in order to have a first feedback, to include their comment, their revision in the second version, and to provide them with a tool that was already taking care of the suggestions that they had provided to us. Then for sure, the second kind of the country of evaluation is mediated by the teachers. So once more, I have to say that the results that we have received are very, very positive, because for sure, you see, we have tried to use from the traditional way of motivating about the importance of culture. There is not an academic research that has been used by us. We have tried to create stories, games, description of professions in order also to help young people to identify with one of the people that is more directly involved in the fight, and try also to simulate a possible professional career for their future. So this are the different paths that we have been using. And once more, in order to provide a yes or no to your question, yes, the evaluation that we got was quite positive, and we are definitely very, very happy with the, let's say, the feedback that we got from students and teachers.
Thank you. So the room is smashed by the presentations. They were very clear. So we thank the three of us for being together, waiting and participating with us. Do you have any more questions to Pier Giacomo of the project? No? So I have another one. So I noticed that you have been part of other projects. They are very connected, like Aurora, the one who deals with identifying and tracking the cultural goods. Aurora, you presented us Aurora?
Well, I'm directly involved in Anchisa. There are the three projects that are let's say, there is a consultation table that has been organized by the Horizon Europe program in order to continuously exchange information. So there is an event that will be organized also in January between Anchisa, Aurora, and the Enigma. And Anchisa, I can provide you with some information with Anchisa because it's the one that is the one where I'm directly involved. Is concerned with the development of 6 tools. So tools in sense of something practical to be given to police, to the customs officers, to the people that are managing archaeological sites, to people involved in a museum or in cultural institution to protect against or to identify stolen, about to provide information how to support their work. Once more, if you give me 1 second, I will try to. Okay, yeah, I found, and I'm share my screen once more just for a while. In Anchisa, we have 6 different tools that at the moment is under development. The first one is concerned with the site monitoring and protection, and this will be the topic of the webinar that is organized in January by Anchisa, because there is a network of drones and, of course, an intelligence that has been given to the information that is collected to the drone in order to make a permanent control of archaeological site and support the identification of possible areas of weakness. Then there are some tools that, on the contrary, are concerned with data, in the sense that you probably know that Europol is trying to create a European databases collecting information from all the different law enforcement agencies from different countries, but this is something that is still at the very beginning. At the moment, France is the country probably that has provided more data to Europol, But for instance, the Italian Carabinieri, that has really millions and millions of information, are quite jealous of their position. Christos already underlined that sometimes they are not so collaborative. And of course, this is something, and for this reason, in any case, it's important to create some instrument in order to facilitate the exchange of information between different databases, and this is one of the topics where ANCHISA is currently working. Border control object identification is one of the other topics, and it's been created by a French organization, Parks. The tool artifact is the name of this object, has created a set of images that can be inquired by staffs at the border for during an ordinary custom control, in order to support them in understanding if an object can be in one of the area of the more stolen object. Of course, we will never be able to give the information that this object has been specifically stolen. However, we can help the custom officer to have some ideas, and in case of doubt, to be in direct connection with an expert that can support him or her to identify the provenance of the object with some kind of evidence. Then shared database design is once more concerned with the problem of sharing information, but with this more how a new database should be designed in order to take benefit of all the information that has been already concerned. Another one, advanced heterogeneous data fusion engine. This is something very interesting that has been created by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, and is concerned with a browser, so an engine that is able to launch inquiries all over the web in order to support museum or police or custom office or anybody that is interested in receiving information if some new information arose about a specific object or a group of objects of interest. And then finally, the last one is created by Innova in Lisbon. So it's a real Portuguese product that you should be proud about, and is concerned about the use of spectral fluorescence signature in order to evaluate the age of books. Once more, this is more important for falsification of books in order to identify exactly the date of the papers and be sure about the authenticity or not of an ancient book. Hope that my feedback was responding to your question, Paula.
We wish you were all here so we can smash you with the questions during coffee breaks, because coffee breaks are all very active, but not in presence in the amphitheater. Everybody goes mood. But okay, so I think it's time for us to have a small break. So you are all invited to come to go to the second floor again for a Portuguese coffee. So I hope you all will taste next time our Portuguese coffee and have a drink with
cafezinho.
us. A promise. A promise.
Hopefully.
So you will go and have a break thinking about and smelling, imagining the smelling of the Portuguese coffee, and we will be back in 20 minutes, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience. Stay there.
Thank you.
Hello? Is anybody out there? I see. So thank you for coming back. And now we will have a session that we would like to be a little different. When we thought about it with Pier Giacomo, it was supposed to be in presence, but we moved to an alternative, and I think it will be great at the end. It will work. Pier Giacomo will now go into detail into an open educational resource that has been developed within the Picture project. He mentioned the guilty treasures, so we will try to simulate the dynamics of the game. So, PG, when you're ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you very much, Paola. So, of course, as I mentioned, there are 17 training materials that has been developed by the project. Since ICOM was one also the organization involved today, together with Paola, we have decided to select a guilty treasure as a model, just to provide you with an example. The original idea, unfortunately, was to play directly, taking with me a copy of the material just ready in order to simulate a real game. However, let's say, I guess that we can work in order to help you well understand how it works, even without a physical presence today. So let's move on. And we've already mentioned the red list. And of course, the red list were at the basis of the idea of the project. The game. The game was born once more in Marseille. I already mentioned you that we had some meetings during this kind of Museumix event. And the Museum of the City of Marseille had organized in this period an exhibition named Guilty Treasure, just to present the theme of the fight against illicit trafficking and looting to the citizens, and of course mixing our interest for the red list together with the opportunity and the idea provided by the exhibition. We designed and implemented this educational resource. The resource is a combination of the red list and Cluedo. Probably you know the game. I see that there is also a Portuguese version of the game, where the players have to identify the room where a murder happened, who was the killer, who was the weapon used to kill the character. And of course, using the same model, we identified in the overall list of the ICOM red list 81 objects, cultural objects, in a dangerous situation. As Elke underlined, the red list are not list of stolen objects. This kind of list usually are managed by the law enforcement agency, by the police, because they have a list and, of course, start investigation over this list. The objective of ICOM is to stimulate attention on objects that are in a risk of being stolen. But of course, in our simulation of the game, we had imagined that this object has been really stolen by somebody. And of course, the objective of the game and the identification of the item that has been stolen in a list of the 81 objects. And of course, together with the instruction, we provide the game board in order to have everything available for the user, one dice, the 5 characters that represent the different actors, the different people, professionals, that are involved in the fight against the trafficking of stolen objects. Then there is a clue sheet per each player, and the 81 cards that represent different cultural objects, each one with a different set of characteristics. These are the material. I already mentioned before that the 5 professionals are the policemen, the archaeologist, the custom officer, the artist, the curator. We have also a dice that can be easily created with glue and paper. And these are the list of the different material, of the different cards, objects that can be stolen. The materials, you see that each card, here we have 27 cards, 9 columns, 9 lines and 3 columns for 27 different objects, are characterized by characteristics: the metal, the color, the material, the color, the provenance, and the age of the object. The instructions are quite simple in the sense that, of course, we have a board. The characters throwing the dice must move all around the board, entering the cells. In each cell, they have to take a card with questions. They have asked the question, interact with the other players, and steps after steps identify the correct solution. Once that one of the players believe to know the correct solution, they can guess and check if they are right or not. In principle, we have created the game from 2 to 5 players. Could be single people or could be group of people. Of course, in a classroom, we have imagined to have some groups of school friends that arrange themselves in order to be one of the 5 professionals. And of course, we have a card that identifies the 5 players as the 5 professionals. Since 81 cards is not easy to be distributed, we have provided some instruction. So in case of 2 players, each player will receive 36 cards. And of course, receiving 36 cards means that these cards are not they are not the stolen object. Only one of the 81 has been stolen. The other cards are distributed, 36 cards in case of 2 players, until 15 cards in case of 5 different players. The other ones are kept, for sure, hidden on the general board game. Then the cards are put on the board. The players start to look at the cards, and of course they can start deleting the card that they already have in the round from the clue sheet. There is a general list of 81 possible cards. the ones that they have already in their hands are not the card that has been stolen. Progressively, with the evolution of the game, they will ask to the other players to show one of their cards in order to discover other cards that has not been stolen, until one player believes to have the good solution, and he or she can try to identify and to put the option, to set the option. The instruction, we see that the objects are characterized by the material. The material can be metal, or stone, or ivory, or animal bones, or other material such as leather, wood, ceramic, faience, paper, and so on. The color would be a pale color. We try to simplify, not to go in detail and to be really too choosy. Pale, brown, or multicolor. The origin of the stolen object, Africa or Asia, America or Europe. And finally, the time when the stolen object was created. Would be ancient time, Middle Age, of modern times. For sure, for American object, we have a different concept concerning the age, so pre-Columbian period is included in ancient time, and the colonial period is considered as the Middle Age for the American objects. Of course, one suggestion is made that the person on the left of the player must reveal if they have a card, for instance, with a metal material. They display the card to all the other players, so progressively all of them identify the cards that have not been stolen. There are some lucky positions where the players can receive some secret clue, and progressively we arrive, and usually in 40-45 minutes, so the time of a lesson, the player can win and identify the right solution. And that's all. Now, in principle, this was the time that we reserve for the real game, to play with you. Since we don't have the game, we can first of all ask your question, and then on the contrary go in detail on the cards, because probably for you as people working in museum and in cultural institution, the typology of the stolen object could be the most interesting thing. Thank you very much at the moment for your interest, and open to any question for better understanding the way in which the game has been designed.
So thank you. Are we all willing to play? So questions? I surely use some victims, some students, to try to play. I will challenge them. So questions about the game or any other? No?
No, but the game is quite simple. If they have already played Cluedo, they immediately understand how it works. It's just a change the purpose of the game. Instead of identifying a killer, we have to identify a stolen object. But let's say the principle is well known, so it's not too difficult to put in practice. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's quite interesting because we also try to provide some information about the object, also thanks to the use of the red list, in order to also help the student discover some new object, because for sure a statue or a painting is something that is well known. and also the origin of the way in which the material has been stolen. So for each card, there is a very small story that tries to identify a little more the origin and how it became one of the cards of the red list prepared by the icon.
Okay, thank you. No more comments? We have a comment, please.
Thank you very much. You were talking about the typologies of objects in the game. So what were the criteria and thinking behind the selection of those typologies? If you can speak about this process of why do you choose that kind of object and not another kind of object?
Well, as usually is drill and practice, in the sense that the scope of the joke is to identify one card. So we have to identify some object, some characteristic of the object in order to be easily identified, because for sure we cannot pretend that the students of a primary or secondary school know exactly the typology of a cultural object. So it should be something quite simple and easy to be understood. And of course, we said, well, first of all, the origin, the geographical origin, and the period, the age, are important. As an important issue, of course, are the material. And of course, this is something that you should have in your hands in order to be understood, but from a photograph, you can also identify more or less the kind of materials. But of course, we have also to identify the different choice between the materials. So we have to proceed with a power multiplication, in the sense that if we have three choices for each characteristics, with two characteristics we have 3 multiplied 3, 9 different objects. If we have 3 characteristics, we have 9 multiplied 3, 27 objects, and 27 objects, the game was too simple. So we said, let's identify a 4th characteristic, that is the color, in order to have 81 objects that provide us with a variety that can well represent the different typologies. Then, all around the red list, we try to identify the characteristic in order to have an equal balance between the geographic provenance, between the age, and between the materials that was created. So at the end of the day, there was a general framework, then it was, let's say, a identification that was piloted by the necessity to the responder to have each card with a different set of characteristics. But once that the answer, the question are over, we can move just to have a look at the 81 cards, so we can better have a look at how it's been organized.
Yes.
So, if there is any question, otherwise we can move. Maula, do we agree? Shall we move to...
Yes, please, move on.
Okay. So, let me wait just a moment that I go directly to the cards. Share the screen, and here are the cards. So each page includes 4 different cards, and you see that each card is characterized by the material, the color, the age, and the geographic location. So there is a representation of the object. This is a coin with a picture. We identify that it comes from the red list created for Ukraine. And here there is a small description, is a golden coin in the Kievan, Russia, Vladimir. The age is the 10th, 11th century, and the museum is the Mist in Kiev. And then we have other objects in Ukraine, Cambodia, Egypt, Syria, so tablet, bracelet, a stand from Central America, another cross, once more from Central America. A statue stolen from a private house, icon red list, Libya or Ukraine, sometimes also with objects that are quite unknown, as the strigil, that was an object used by the Roman gladiators for their races. Then an astrolabe in Syria, in Iraqi, once more Central America or China. Ukraine, there are several Ukraine, a gospel, an altar gospel. Cambodia, Iraq, Yemen, Haiti. Some of them are not included in the red list, as already mentioned, but a robbery in a church, Nazi spoliation, Syria, China, once more a steel or a necklace, a crucifix or a jar from Egypt, Dominican Republic, Africa, East Europe, Yemen, once more Haiti, Iraqi. So you see there is a variety also to present really a different set of possible objects and try to create the interest, stimulate the interest in the participant. A fountain, a scroll from ancient painting, medical prescription of ancient Egypt, a whistle vessel, even some doors, tech doors from a museum. So this kind of object with a very different origin and geographic location. And this is the full list of the cards. Here on the contrary is the board game, the clue sheet that we provide, and of course we are also supporting the teacher with the instruction, with the general introduction of the matter, but also with some suggestion for further activities. Of course, to look at the movies, to create a discussion about the detectorism or other kind of people that perpetrate this kind of crime, just to stimulate people to reflect, not just using the game as a pretext for culture and not as something that is just a game, but on the contrary is useful to stimulate the fantasy and the creativity of the student. And this is the common front page of all the materials that we have developed. So hope to help you better understand. Of course, as all the games, it's easier to play than to describe it. So really, it's quite simple to print one of our guide and try to simulate in a real situation with some student or with some people how it works. And of course, if you have any suggestion to improve, or if you see any error that has not been identified yet, please, we are very, very thankful if you can provide us with this kind of information.
Thank you very much. So, opening for questions. No, one. The same.
It's a very quick question because most of the day, and of course it is very important, we spoke about places in conflicts, Middle East, Africa, etc. And the game, because it's based on the red list, also focus a lot on artifacts coming from those kinds of scenarios. But in terms as educational tools and mediation tools, could we think more about our local realities? For instance, in Portugal, religious the looting and the illicit trafficking of religious heritage and some artistic heritage, such as traditional tiles, are big issues and problems. So if we want to raise awareness towards young people, don't you think we should focus first on our problems, and after have a more global view on the subject? So to raise awareness first for the local problems, such as I was mentioning once for Portugal, and then to go to a bigger vision and global vision, because of course we are in a global society.
You are perfectly right. But of course, our purpose was to create models. Not to say this is the best way that we can imagine must be applied rigidly in everywhere, in each country, for each age. We have to create some model, some different ideas, tackling the different problems, tackling the different challenges, characteristics that we have in mind. But of course, and we try, when we provide this kind of information, the teachers know their student, know their reality, so the good way should be that we provide the model, but everything is reorganized according to the real situation. I mentioned before one of the resources that I like more is the one that has been created by the Catalan school together with their museum in a real archaeological site. So they are providing, let's say, the model of how an excavation should be done, how the prevention against detection can be done, and then are the people that are working directly in the archaeological site that mediate with the student the way in which the model should be applied in the specific context. This site is fantastic because they have created a false archaeological site where the students can really dig. They have hidden false coins in order to be detected by metal detectors. So it really is a test field that is wonderful as a model for inviting people to be interested in this topic. But you are perfectly centered the necessity to characterize, to geolocalize, and provide a cultural adaptation of each of the materials that have been identified.
Thank you. Thinking about schools, those games, those tools are just inspiration for the development of other tools. And even some schools have small museums, so they can, maybe the teachers and the students can organize their own games based on the collections, on the cultural heritage they have in their own small museum at their own school, I don't know. So very good inspiration as educational tools. And as I would like to also involve our students in the conversation, I would like to challenge Francisco. It's not fair. Francisco is an Erasmus student. So maybe, Francisco, can you introduce yourself? How do you see these tools applied in the academy?
How can I say about this game? Or
Sorry?
what?
How do you see these tools applied in the academy, in your program, in the museology program?
I think it's useful.
Okay.
What can
you develop?
Actually,
can you develop?
I'm a freshman of museology, so I think the knowledge today is mostly like to open my mind. It's like some new knowledges, some new minds, but I have never touched.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that these tools, although they are foreseen for younger ones, would they be applied to elder students within the academy, the university?
Yeah,
would they be useful?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
To me, I think it's useful. I don't know
Okay.
the others thing. Yeah.
Okay. PG, in terms of exploitation, are you considering the translation into other languages besides the ones you have?
Of course, now we don't have a further additional budget. We had been contacted by the municipality of Alcázar do Sal that was interested in creating a Portuguese version of the material, but then, of course, one is the willingness, then at the end of the time, they could not find the time to translate. But however, I can put in contact, if you agree, with the colleagues in Alcázar, just to discover it by chance. They already started, because after the first contacts it was not possible to complete, but in any case, of course, all the materials has been released with a Creative Commons zero license, so everybody can use, manipulate, modify them as you like, so there is no restriction at all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other comments? No? José, do you have any comments? Any questions from ICOM?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe a small reflection, I would say. I think today the gamification is a very important tool for museums. ICOM developed, I think 2 or 3 years ago, participated in an international project called HELP, which elaborated some work with other partners with the new technologies applied to museums, mediation, cultural heritage, and many of the research work we've done was during the pandemics times, and we had a very interesting conclusion, which was that most of the museums all around the world, especially in Europe, were very concerned during the pandemics to how not to break the relation with the publics, being the museums closed to the public. So gamification and technology was one of the main tools that very widely in the world museums used to engage with the public during the COVID pandemics. And one of the phases of this project, of the HELP project, concerned making a survey of the strategies used by museums during this period. And gamification, we discovered all around the European countries, many museums that without any real knowledge about the new technology techniques were able to develop some tools to engage with their publics through gamification. And this gamification was very important because not only it was a mean to contact with the public while they were closed, it was also a mean to promote and develop awareness about the importance of heritage culture and heritage goods. So I think that projects like this and all kind of games that we saw today for the Pitch project are simply a new way to engage with the public, especially with the youngs, so that awareness can be raised and the new generations can, using the tools they best know today, it seems like they are born gaming with iPads and mobile phones and etc. So that this engage with new technology and gamification can raise awareness to important issues like heritage, like culture, like identity. Also the theme that you are working today, which is illicit traffic of cultural goods. I think it's a way very interesting and especially that can bring results in the short period of time. I don't know if this kind of games can be applied for adults and its results. I think we are talking about different ages with different interests. But I think, for instance, for special needs people, it's also a very interesting way to develop a contribution for the global awareness about the importance of heritage.
Thank you, Maria José. I may add in a very personal way that my elder son learned how to read with a traditional game concerning Egyptian mummies. And in fact, the game there's no need to be digital, but only gaming, just playing with things, raise awareness and respect. And I think that if we educate for people to have respect for other people's, other countries, other people heritage, respect can result in not stealing, not looting, well, things like that. So, comments? Also?
Paula,
yes?
Sorry, because now I am the only non-Portuguese person available. If you talk Portuguese slowly, I can understand. So it's easier for you. And also, it's not necessary to use a language that is different for all of us.
Okay, we are commenting that maybe if we would speak Portuguese, you would understand better. I don't know. Well, I see that Dr. Miguel Rodrigues came into the room. I don't know, maybe Marta, can you call him? So if there is no other comments or questions, I believe it's time to close the session. Just wait a minute for another colleague. Ansiedade. No, I'm sure. Okay, I think we will close the session with some remarks in terms of organization. And I believe this journey, although starting a little bit, with disturbance, ended up with a lot of food for thoughts, as we used to say, in terms of many examples. I may highlight the example from Christos, an example of courage, resilience, courage to publish, to publicly denounce some situations, to defend, to thrive for identity, because we know Greece has been suffering from a lot of this kind of events. And Christos brings us the example of how a PhD research project may end up being a very useful tool for society in terms of global territories, and the courage, and also what we may have to thank him for what he has been done, although not publicly all the time recognized. So we think that projects like a picture and other contexts that give the credit to what has been done in terms of so serious research, so meticulous, so courage research is very important for us. So thank you, Christos. I hope you may inspire our students and our professionals. We need a lot of Christos defending our cultural heritage. In terms of other example, I may highlight Helka activities in terms of not only ICOM Austria, but ICOM Europe, the Blue Shield. We really hope that in short time the Portuguese may have their own Blue Shield Commission. It's something that we are dealing with for some years. I hope we may achieve that goal. It's very important because the Blue Shield expanded the activities, as Elka showed us, not only in conflict situations, but in terms of emergence situations and other, even in terms of education. So thank you, Helka, for your testimony and for your experience and for all your activities. I also hope that you may inspire some museologists, some other people belong to the ICOM International and their own national committees. And of course, Erasmus and Picture is an example of education that we feel the responsibility as academy. Now I'm talking on behalf of the University of Porto and on behalf of SITSEM, so the research unit that supported as well as the municipality of Porto and of course ICOM Portugal. We believe that the educational institutions since primary school till the end of the universities, they have a really important role in this, to raise awareness, to raise respect, to raise tools. And I really thank Erasmus. I wish I had the idea of have a picture program. May we have something in Portugal that can inspire on your so grateful tools. So education is really important, and societal challenges like traffic of cultural goods is a very important challenge. And so this journey, I believe, wants to raise the challenge of all that are here in presence, but also all that are following us by Facebook or YouTube. The challenge is what we can do to contribute for this process. And I think we had the testimony of a lot of tools we can use to do something. So that's the challenge. So I give the floor to Christos, Elke, and Pier Giacomo also. Would you like, maybe Christos, the first one, would you like to say something? He's not here? No? So he left. Helka is still, no? So Pier Giacomo, you are the last victim. Are you still with us? The resilient. The resilient.
No, but let's say that.
Yes, please. Would you like to say some words?
Just to thank you for the organization, because despite the technological problems, but we know that always happen, it was a very interesting day. And of course, what also is quite important is to see that we have three different point of starting point, but at the end of the day, there were a lot of integration between the activity. Even if we never met, we know each other. So let's say there is a community that more and more is able to work together. And of course, this is one of the legacy of the continuous project. More we are able to involve people in project, we are also able to generate new ideas, new projects, new ways to tackle the matter. So this is, then the second step is what I already mentioned. This is just a starting point. We should use the next week when we are still with the good ideas coming from the celebration of the day, with listening to other people, to think all together about, so if there is the opportunity next week or in December when we have time to reserve a day just for brainstorming, how to move from this kind of pilot experience into something that is progressively adaptable to new exigencies, new needs. I'm happy and I give you my time since now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are we done here? So, a long, not so long journey, but I believe we ended up in the best way. David, would you like to say some words? Just ICOM? No. No, nobody wants to say anything. So, okay. So, Pier Giacomo, thank you very much. We are closing the session, but we are not closing the connection. We hope that we may keep on working and developing great tools as the ones you developed. And thank you to your organization that allows you to have resources to support this project so important to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you later. For those who are with us, so remember the challenge and see you next time.
Parece que o Dr. Miguel está mesmo a chegar para podermos fazer o encerramento aqui a doutora Paula.
Ok,
Vou
obrigada.
fazer a plaquinha do moço.
Somos afortunados porque conseguimos ser beneficiados com a presença do Dr. Miguel Rodrigues. So we have the fortune to get the presence of Miguel Rodrigues, and I'll pass the floor to him for some words about these activities. Can you breathe? Are you breathing?
Muito obrigado. Peço desculpa por este pequeno atraso, mas, enfim, o trânsito do Porto é complicado. Enfim, às vezes demora-se mais do que se espera. Bom, para encerrar, eu quero agradecer ao ICOM Portugal, que em boa hora propôs à Faculdade de Letras, sessão, e ao município do Porto, a celebração pela primeira vez em Portugal do Dia Internacional contra o Tráfico Ilícito de Bens Culturais. Quero agradecer especialmente aos meus colegas da Direção Municipal de Cultura e Património, à doutora Mariana Teixeira, à doutora Ana Bárbara, à doutora Eva Cordeiro, que, por parte da Direção Municipal, tiveram um especial empenhamento na realização destas jornadas. A preservação do património cultural é uma questão importante porque contribui para a identidade e a memória de cada povo e o tráfico de bens culturais ameaça essa riqueza e diversidade cultural. Por isso, a Convenção da Unesco de 1970, relativa às medidas a serem adotadas para proibir e impedir a importação, a exportação e transferência de propriedades ilícitas de bens culturais, que celebra neste ano o seu 54º aniversário, deu-nos um quadro internacional de atuação não só para a prevenção do roubo e da pilhagem, mas também para a restituição e devolução de bens culturais roubados, a par de outros avanços na luta contra o tráfico ilícito. É certo que muito foi alcançado. Temos hoje uma maior consciência sobre os danos culturais, morais e materiais causados por esse tráfico, agora reconhecido como crime de guerra pelas Nações Unidas, com especial relevo para as comunidades científica e profissional ligadas ao património e à preservação dos bens culturais. Percebemos pelas palestras que hoje aqui foram proferidas que foram desenvolvidas leis preventivas, treinados profissionais e fortalecida a cooperação internacional. No entanto, o fluxo ilícito de bens culturais ainda é o terceiro maior em volume depois das drogas e das armas. Uma questão cultural, um negócio obscuro, que cresce em áreas de conflito. É por isso importante informar e sensibilizar profissionais e compradores, sejam eles particulares ou coletivos, para a verificação da proveniência das suas aquisições, no sentido de assegurar a preservação destes patrimónios e assegurar a devolução de bens culturais que foram retirados às suas comunidades de origem. Espero que as jornadas de hoje tenham sido frutíferas nesse sentido, de maior esclarecimento da comunidade científica e todos os profissionais ligados a esta área, e espero que no próximo ano podamos ter novamente a celebração desta Convenção da Unesco, celebrada em 1970. Muito obrigado.
Agora é que é mesmo para encerrar, penso eu. Gostaria, antes de mais, de agradecer a presença de todos vós aqui hoje, nesta iniciativa que foi partilhada e, em nome do ICOM Portugal, agradeço aos nossos parceiros que connosco trabalharam afincadamente para que o dia de hoje fosse possível, nomeadamente ao CITSEM e à Faculdade de Letras da Universidade de Porto, também a minha casa, na pessoa da sua coordenadora científica, a doutora Inês Amorim, que esteve connosco de manhã, e neste momento aqui com a professora doutora Paula Menino Homem, mas também ao município do Porto, que foi também parceira na organização desta comemoração, em representação do qual temos aqui o Dr. Miguel Rodrigues e, na sua pessoa, cumprimentaram-se ao município como toda a Direção de Cultura. Uma palavra muito especial também de agradecimento aos nossos oradores, que foram, enfim, incansáveis neste dia, Christos Siragiaonis, a Elka Kellner e Pier Giacomo Sola, que connosco partilharam esta comemoração do 14 de novembro, do 54º aniversário do Dia Internacional contra o Tráfico Ilícito de Bens Culturais e estas jornadas comemorativas que promovemos hoje como forma de consciencialização para a importância da salvaguarda do património cultural, assinalando pela primeira vez em Portugal este Dia Internacional contra o tráfico ilícito dos bens culturais, através deste singelo, mas importante evento que esperemos abra a porta a comemorações futuras e, precisamente, com mais ações de sensibilização e de consciencialização para este problema. Procuramos, assim, trazer aqui a debate a evolução internacional dos meios legais e dos mecanismos de ação contra o tráfico ilícito, desde a Convenção da Unesco de 1970, e divulgando também as ações que o próprio ICOM Internacional tem vindo a desenvolver ao longo dos anos, como os exemplos que vimos das Red Lists, do Observatório, etc. Por outro lado, pretendeu também dar-se a conhecer alguns projetos internacionais existentes nesta matéria, como foi o caso do Pitcher, ligado ao Erasmus, que tem a particularidade de ser especialmente dirigido aos jovens e, portanto, sensibilizando as novas gerações para a importância da proteção e da salvaguarda do património cultural, consciencializando e orientando as comunidades escolares e educativas para o problema do tráfico ilícito, sobretudo com a importância que ele ganha nos dias de hoje, em que infelizmente vivemos ainda graves conflitos armados, outros que estão latentes e que continuam a pôr em causa a segurança internacional de pessoas, de comunidades, de paisagens e de patrimónios culturais que são de todos nós e se querem preservar para o futuro. De realçar ainda nesta matéria o papel importantíssimo dos museus e das organizações do património e dos seus quadros técnicos, cuja sensibilização e capacitação são fundamentais para um eficaz combate ao tráfico ilícito, mais não seja através de uma consciencialização efetiva deste gravíssimo problema que afeta todo o mundo e que, enquanto questão global que é, pode e deve ser discutida, partilhada, trabalhada em conjunto pelos profissionais do património e pelas autoridades policiais e judiciais num esforço de colaboração e cooperação que deve ser promovido e incrementado através de intercâmbios de conhecimento, de informação, de sensibilização e de difusão de boas práticas. Sendo o ICOM a maior organização internacional de profissionais de museus, procuramos hoje, com esta singela iniciativa conjunta, dar um pequeno passo no sentido de também contribuirmos para a sensibilização dos nossos museus, dos seus profissionais e da comunidade educativa, esperando que o dia de hoje tenha sido proveitoso para todos e que se repita de hora avante anualmente, se não por iniciativa do ICOM, por iniciativa de outras instituições e entidades que sabemos que também são trabalhadoras no sentido da preservação dos bens culturais e da nossa identidade cultural. Muito obrigada a todos, uma boa noite.